Well, yeah, they're called zombie banks, right? Because they should be dead, right? But they're not. They're kept alive by the pumping of government resources into them. And and like any other business, when you fail, you should be allowed to fail and go bankrupt and, you know, start again. You know, plus or minus through the difficulty of the situation of bankruptcy. But the banks get a the banks get a free pass. You know, they get a they with this stupid idea that they're too big to fail, which is a brand new concept in the world, right? Too big to fail. Oh, we can't let the banks go bankrupt. They're too big to fail. We can't let the insurance companies or the building societies go bankrupt because they're too big to fail. Well, no, no, no. They should fail because if they're too big to fail, they're too dangerous and they shouldn't be allowed to exist. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
completely backwards. So it's the revolving door of government and industry that's always existed, where they support each other, and government insures the money in the banks, and agrees to bail out the banks if there's any problem, because the bank will, if the bank crashes, a lot of people will lose their access to money, and there'll be chaos and riots on the streets. And so, the bank is sort of holding a knife to the throat of the government, saying, bail us out, or we'll just cut off all these resources to all these people, and they'll be very angry with you, and they'll vote you out, and they'll vote another group of people in, and there's also, backhanders and other payments going on as well. So it's obviously not black and white, but it is extremely corrupt when, when something is too big to fail. It Nothing is too big to fail. It needs to fail. The question of cancelled debt is a complex one. Should debt be cancelled? I think it's a very, very complicated topic that probably needs to be understood on an individual basis. But my understanding is that in Western Christian culture, this is a problem that goes back to the time of Moses.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a new problem. It's a problem we've been dealing with for thousands of years. Now, why have we been dealing with it for thousands of years? Because we don't have an effective or more effective solution than that which Moses came up with 2,500 years ago. We don't have a better way because human beings are the way that they are. They will overextend themselves. There's never enough currency issued. The system is designed to create bankruptcy. Look at this way the system is designed. It's designed to create bankruptcy. There isn't enough money issued to repay all the loans. There isn't. I don't disagree with you. At the same time, it's also Christian to forgive debt. Yeah, there's a difference between getting in debt and being invited to be in debt. The whole system invites everybody to be in debt. It's the entire system of every country in the world. Everybody is living paying other people's debts. That is the entire economic system of the planet that we live on. Everybody is paying everybody else's debts. Why does government constantly have to borrow money? Because it's not getting enough of the money from the people to pay its own debts. The very system that we live in is paying other people's debts. What are taxes? Taxes go to pay other people's debts. They don't go to pay your own debts. You could argue that taxes go to pay local services, but so could also local payments could also go to pay local services. The redistribution of wealth is a very complex concept that has a very large negative side. The potential for it to be abused is huge. And if you don't see where the money is going, it could be going anywhere. And it usually does, and there's no controls, real controls, or checks and balances, and it all disappears. And so there's a strong argument for the fact that the end point of social welfare is the collapse of society that we live in, the inevitable collapse, because we can't keep printing money forever because costs will skyrocket, as have continually happened and happened and happened, and all that's we're living on air as a planet, because governments are issuing more and more currency to cope with the inflation, but the currency is not backed by any real value, and so this just creates more inflation. And every the average length of a currency is, I believe, 27 years before it crashes. Any currency. If you look at the average throughout history, 27 years is the average length of a currency before complete collapse. There's no stability in it at all. The longest surviving currency in human history is the American dollar, and that survived only because there were basically no real taxes before the First World War. So it was a non-taxed income system up to about 100 years ago, and that's why it survived for so long. But the average age of a currency is 27 years. Then it collapses, everything gets wiped to zero, and they start again. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I think there's probably better ways to manage an economy based on real resources. The issuing of credit without the securities to back it up is isn't that crime under Muslim law? And it's definitely not a Christian way to behave. Whichever way you paint it in terms of helping people, and the result is the destruction of everything eventually. People end up fighting over reality because they live in unreality for so long. And that wealth in the modern world can disappear almost instantly because we live in this digital economic system which creates great opportunities based on trust. Credit is trust. And for as long as we have an ethical and trustworthy society, credit is fine. And there are fantastic examples of credit working brilliantly. Credit cards, internet payments, Amazon, eBay, whatever we do through our internet shopping and businesses online. All these things are based on a system, Post, it's all based on a system of trust. And in general, it works very well, 9 times out of 10. However, the size and scale of the 10th problem can be catastrophic if it's too big. And so we live in a very tangled, confused, and unevolved, in many ways, system, because trust is not as good as actual resource. Trust matters and trust is important, but it's not as good as actual physical resources. And so when we start basing things less on physical resources and more on trust, there's a greater opportunity for the dark side of the human imagination, the criminality that's in the human psyche to try to abuse all of the ideas that are within the system. Remember that the strongest country that we've ever known in modern history, being the United States, was built on a system of no social welfare and no taxation. It was built on that principle. And that's what gave it its strength. You either worked and made money or made products or provided a service, or you had nothing. And that's what what I would describe as Christian ethic, but it's not just Christian. It has cross-religious and cross-cultural elements to it. That's what that's what built a strong society. And now we're paying the price for that, with people looking for an easy way to make money. And Judging success and failure in this context is hard. It's hard. Look, there's people who are going to look at your partner and say, there's people who are going to look at your partner and respect your partner because of his hard work and his intelligence and the way that he's designed his business and what he's set up. And there's people who are going to look at your partner and be very envious and have a lot of negative emotions because of it. I'm just imagining that each person has people who respect them and disrespect them. There's a lot of people who know those things and respect the hard work ethic involved in putting in the time and energy to get everything done. And the people who don't see that effort tend to disrespect it because they don't see the effort involved. And it's in many ways it's neither right or wrong. It's the life that a person has chosen to live. It's the lifestyle that they choose. It's what their choices have led them to. Those who have more money spend it. Those who have more money spend more money. Those who have less money spend less money, because there's little point in the modern economy of making huge savings, because the value of currency is being wiped out left, right, and center. So you need to invest in some kind of physical product to a certain extent. What is the point of making money if you're not going to spend money? You can argue that spending money helps the economy. Yeah, I mean, why go to a restaurant and spend £200 for a meal? Well, that £200 gets injected into the local economy of that area. And why not? Why not inject that money into the economy of that area if you like that service that's provided? It's a free world and people should be able to do that. So it takes a certain level of both intelligence and hard work in order to realize some solutions to these kinds of problems. And many people couldn't live that way. Many people couldn't live and put in that work ethic to everything, because it's very tiring, and you have to be strong-willed. And the downside of being strong-willed is that you're single-minded and you miss out on a lot of things along the way. But you can only take one path, right? Every day the road in the forest diverges into two paths, at least two, and you have to choose one of them because you can't walk down two paths at the same time. So it is very important to understand that we're all making these choices on a daily basis. And well, it's a great question, isn't it? What is regret? I guess it's looking back and wishing that you had taken a different path in life. But regret is also understanding you can't go back and change anything as well. So you make the future better through that. It's some people are quite happy being the mouse on the wheel in the cage, running very fast and going nowhere. It's a safety and security for them. It's what they know. It's within their sphere of understanding. Some people are very comfortable being uncomfortable. But that's the character of who he is. Like the do we want the sun to not be the sun? Do we want the moon to not be the moon? Do we want Peter to not be Peter, or John to not be John, or Mary to not be Mary? It's part of who that person is. There's nothing wrong with wanting better for somebody, but it is a fool who chases the dream when they are unhappy with the journey. But if a person is happy with the journey, it's a smart move. Now, what? And it's about living with gratitude. Somebody has a boat, somebody doesn't have a boat. Does it change the world? Well, if the tree doesn't have deep roots, it doesn't feel like it belongs in the forest. And if the tree only has shallow roots, it can be knocked over by the wind very easily. And so those of us who don't plant deep roots and spend a long time growing will suffer that emotional state of not being as rooted or grounded in things as the people around about us are. And there's nothing that can be done about that. You can't, you know, it takes 20 years to become 20. You can't make the tree really grow any faster than it's going to grow. Yeah, you can provide water and sunlight and nutritional elements to the soil, but the tree is going to grow as it grows, as is natural for it. And in many ways, when we enter other people's families and lives later in life, it's like walking through their forest. It's not our forest, it's their forest.